welcome to Redefine Your Fear, Business Made Simple. Okay, today I'm going to talk about telephone skills. You think that's quite an interesting topic because it's something which we all do. I mean, every single person walking around on the planet, well, nearly everyone, has a mobile phone. Some people have more than one. There's one stage in my working career that actually had two phones, one for general and one for special clients. So we walk around with the phone now attached to us all the time. But actually, it's the actual verbal part of the phone now seems to be in the minority. If you actually go in and you ask for a mobile phone, they say, what do you want to do? Do you want to have a camera? Do you want to be able to do movies? Do you want to do all these other things? If you just go and say, I'd just like a phone to talk to somebody, they look as if you've just stepped off another planet. So telephone skills is something of almost a dying art now because it's been replaced by other forms of communication. In fact, people will go to extraordinary lengths to actually avoid talking to one another on the phone. There's Twitter, so there's tweets, short pieces of information, email, everything is instantaneous, messenger. So people actually will communicate non-verbally through these other sources, and the actual art of talking to somebody on the phone seems to become more and more of a rare skill. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take you back to when I first started as a fresh-faced young lawyer, and that was back in the early 1900s, the early 1990s, where in fact it was before we had the big communication revolution with all the Twitter and etc. It was when mobile phones were still the size of your case and they didn't go in your pocket or anything else. So it was actually the old traditional dial phone. So when I first started as a lawyer, there I was, I arrived at my desk, which I had to build in the first place, so that was always a nice settler to actually get there. Just come out from law school, arrived at my first point, build your desk. Trust me, they did not teach me that in law school. After doing that very difficult task, then suddenly there was a phone there. There had been no training. I had been given no training whatsoever about phone and telephone skills. I think it was rather assumed that because I had used the telephone socially, etc., then that actually using it on a business footing would be no problem. It would be the same. I found it wasn't. In fact, I was terrified of the phone when I first started. It was one of my massive fears. In fact, I'd go to all sorts of lengths to avoid actually taking a telephone message. I'd pretend I didn't hear it, even though it was on my desk. I would suddenly need to go to the toilet, so actually either the receptionist had to take a message or it went to answer phone. I just didn't like the idea of receiving the call. The reason being, I was scared. I had lots of fear about that. So let me tell you how actually I got myself by the baby steps actually to actually not fearing the phone and actually becoming pretty good at the telephone skills. The reason why I was so worried was because basically it was receiving a call. There I was as a new lawyer, full of knowledge, or what I thought was knowledge, but then somebody from the outside wants to ring in and talk to me and wants me to actually give them legal advice. What is more terrifying? What happens if I got it wrong? What happens if they didn't understand me? All these thoughts were rushing through my head. So that was what made receiving the call, which was so bad for me. It was the complete fear of the unknown, and was I going to measure up to that when the call came in? So for me, I didn't really know how to start. It's almost like being in Hollywood. You need a script to actually get things going, to initiate the conversation. So if you receive a call, we'll deal with this slightly more later in this video, but just the opening start, have a little tiny few lines speech about what you are going to be saying. So if you're receiving the call, first of all, say hello, but don't just leave it at hello. Say who you are, where you work, and how can I help you? Now you can say those things in whatever order you like, but if you do that, you've then initiated the conversation, you've then thrown it back onto the other person, then to actually say their bit. So it's actually nice, so you don't get up, you pick up the phone and you don't know what to say. The second part is making a call. Now, I've spoken to my wife and she says to me that she's very happy to receive a call because the unexpected doesn't bother her, but when it comes to making a call, that's when she freezes up. She's not sure what to say. So again, making the call, you shouldn't have to do as much work because you are calling somebody else to ask them something, but there's a lot of people who don't know to answer the phone, so actually you need to have your opening sentences as well, and they're pretty similar to receiving the call. Making a call, first of all you say who you are, then you say what the issue or problem was, and then you ask if they can help you. Very, very simple. That then puts the emphasis back onto the person you're calling to actually then make the solution and talk you through the next point. And finally, there is the returning the call. This is where in my experience, where I ran out the room or whatever to try and avoid the call, the message came through. I felt I was in more control because I know I was initiating the phone call. Some people like to be in control so that they actually can start the conversation and shape it to where they need to be. But it's very, very important that if you're in business, that you return the call. Lawyers are typically well known for not returning their calls. And the problem is, the more phone messages you rack up, the more that person rings, the harder and harder it is to go back and pacify them. Because they've said, I've called you X number of times, blah, 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 blah. Now, I understand everyone is busy and actually that sometimes you can't take the calls or whatever. But if you've got a nice voicemail message which should be updated every day to explain what's going on, or if you've got a secretary who can actually talk to them and keep them keep the client pacified, that does help. But the ultimate responsibility of calling the person back does lie with you. So you've got to make sure that you do make that return call. As a lawyer, I won most of my business from the commercial agents, not because I was the brightest lawyer. I know there's plenty of lawyers who are brighter than me, but it was because I always rang back the agent who was giving me the work. I always made time to actually talk to them. That then was where I got my work from, and that is why actually I was able to get ahead of other lawyers who are doing the same job as me, just by spending the extra time of actually returning the call and making a point of doing that. Me personally, I hated to come back to my desk and see they were written on pink notes. Pink notes all over my desk. I really was like, ugh. So for me, I just go through those and I knock them down, and actually it solved a lot of problems rather than sitting on it and worrying about it.